Hey guys, Constance here from Cosmopolitan Cornbread. Welcome back to our homestead, A Good Life Farm. I do a weekly garden tour where I kind of walk through the gardens and I show you some of the things that have been happening and what's been going on. And this week I thought I would start a little bit different and show you some of the things I have growing on the front porch before we head out into the garden. Now, if you are new here, my name is Constance, and I'm a blogger at cosmopolitancornbread.com. I've been a blogger for many, many years, and we are located in northern Alabama, which is Zone 7B. I have two garden areas. I have a raised bed garden that I have directly in front of my house, so my front porch feels like it's part of that garden. And I also have a no-till in-ground garden that is separate. I do these tours every week and I try to mix them up, make them a little different every week, show you different things and all of that. And it's a great way not only to share what I'm doing, I can go back and I can look at how things were doing at different time frames, and I use it as my own source of information. So let me grab one more sip and then we'll get started. So up here on the front porch, I've got all sorts of flower pots that I have sort of sitting all over the place, as well as, you know, we've got the flower beds down here. We've got chocolate mint, we've got lemon balm, I've got all sorts of flowers over here. I've got echinacea and irises, which the irises definitely are going to be getting thinned out here before too long. We've got some torch flowers, lots of rosemary. It's just a very full, lush flower bed. Now, I like to utilize things to turn into flower pots. So some of my flower pots aren't necessarily things you would usually see as a flower pot, but it's just something I like to do. So this box down here is all varieties of coleus. I love the color that coleus has. I grow some every single year. Now it does get these little flowers that are sort of like basil, but the leaves themselves are the color. This right here is some lavender, and it is growing in an old rusty chicken feeder. These are anemone flowers and they have opened up for the first time this week. I love how delicate these are. They do come in all different colors, but so far I'm only seeing white ones. But the flower actually reminds me a little bit of poppies. So I'm loving that, especially since my poppies didn't do anything this year. Here I have another lavender. It's got some new heads coming up there. This is a begonia, which I also grow for the beautiful foliage, but it is getting little flowers down in there, which is nice to see. And then here's another one of my unusual pots. This one has sweet potato vine in it, and this is actually an old metal pail that had some holes in it. I found it in the woods when I was hiking, and so I turned it into a flower pot. And then down in there, now I threw some seeds down in there. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember what I put in there. So they're growing, so I'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. I'm thinking it might have been straw flowers, but I don't remember. This here is my fig tree. This fig tree was actually a gift from a sweet friend, and I'm so excited to see it doing well. She gave it to me last year. I was worried about it not making it through winter, but as you can see, it is doing great. Now, I do plan on planting this fig tree in the ground, but I am waiting until it gets a little bit more size to it before I do that. I've had a history of not being able to grow fig trees, but every one that I started was these little bitty babies. And so I thought, well, maybe it was just too much, maybe it didn't have enough of a root system yet. But when I was given this one, and it came in a pot a little bit smaller than the one it's in now, I decided to wait, let this get established, let it get some root size to it, and then maybe in a year or so from now, I will go ahead and put this in the ground, because I would really love to have some fig trees. Now, my front porch is a little bit of a staging area here at the moment. I finally got this table cleared off. This is where a lot of my seedlings have been sitting in their trays. And so now that they've all been planted, I will be going ahead and clearing all of this off. But I do keep my tool basket right here on the porch because it is very handy. I can just come here and I can grab it and I can take it out wherever I need it. So this will be getting straightened up this week, and this will once again become the porch as opposed to a work area. So let me take one more sip and let's head into the garden. Thought I would come down here and show you something I don't think I've shown you yet on the garden tours. Right down here, those are our little baby goji berries that I'm hoping, fingers crossed, take off and that we're able to get some goji berries. This is our asparagus bed, which is going crazy, as you can see. I'm excited to see everything that happens in here, and hopefully in the next year or two we'll be able to start harvesting this. So right here is one of the big things that happened this week out in the garden. I built another raised bed, and this raised bed is almost entirely filled with pepper plants because I had all sorts of extra pepper plants, and I decided rather than composting them all, I would go ahead and just build a quick raised bed and stick them in. Now, I planted 10 varieties of peppers this year. Most of them did pretty well, all except the jigsaws. But from what I'm hearing, a lot of people had issues with the jigsaw peppers this year. Low germination rate. When they do grow, they're very puny. So I'm hoping that at least one of those jigsaw pepper plants does well. I would be very disappointed if they don't, because jigsaw peppers they have such cool foliage. I mean, the foliage themselves are purple and green and all multicolored. So it would be nice to see that. Now, in case you missed it, I have a video where I show how to put this garden bed together. It took literally 5 minutes or less to do it. Super easy, and if your lumberyard will cut a piece of wood in half for you, you don't even need tools other than a hammer. This right here is a Chinese 5-color pepper, and I'm starting to see the little purple blossoms. Now, all through the tomato plants, we are beginning to see little baby tomatoes, like that right down in there, all over the place. And I had mentioned pretty early on that I had a mishap with my tomato plants where all of my baby tomatoes, or most of them, got completely mixed up, and I don't know what variety I planted where. But all of these varieties, for the most part, I think are all very different from one another. And so now that the plants are developing, I'm starting to notice some differences. For instance, the tomato plant here on the very end is really viney and narrow and with pointed leaves. And so I figured out that that is actually a purple Russian, whereas all of the rest of them in that bed, as well as the couple that I planted in this long bed, should all be the Berkeley pink tie-dye tomatoes. But that is definitely a purple Russian, not only because of the shape of the plant itself, but the tomatoes. The sunflowers I've planted out here are all about 18 inches tall. My nasturtium down here seems to be beginning to fill out a little bit. This is an Alaska red nasturtium. The Kajari melon plants are getting a little bit of size to them. That right there is not a welcome sight. Well, now it just fell. That was a cucumber beetle. I will be out here tonight doing my pest maintenance. The long bed here is really starting to fill in. We're starting to see all of the flowers and herbs come together. I came out here yesterday and heavily pruned back the oregano again. Now, I just want to point this out. If you see mushrooms developing in your garden bed, don't freak out. If you see mushrooms, it means there's a lot of biological matter in your soil. It means it's healthy. Look at all of this pink Sunday and blue Monday sage coming up. These cosmos are getting some size to them. That's exciting. Looking good. Now I thought this was really interesting. The bee balm in this bed has flowered, and I don't remember my bee balm flowering this early in the year. I've got my original patch over there in another bed, and that has not begun to flower. But this one is full-fledged, fully flowered, which is kind of neat. Grab my coffee. The astilbe is getting buds on it. You can see there. As is the ismene. Look at that. I'm excited to see this. These are the coolest looking flowers. I can't wait to see these open up. Over here in the low bed, we've got more flowers getting ready to open up. This is a dahlia. And I'm very excited. Down there along the trellis, I'm seeing baby cucumbers. I replanted that about a week or so ago, and they are finally coming up, which makes me very happy. I've also got a volunteer lettuce plant down there, which is interesting because I've never planted lettuce in this bed, but I did have lettuce over there, which you can see those really big plants. Those are both volunteers that came back from last year. And the pepper plants over there are doing okay. We had a lot of heavy slug damage this year, but they seem to be under control, and I'm not seeing any more new damage, and there's new growth on the tops of all of these pepper plants, so hopefully they do well. So this made me really happy this week. These are my Joseph's Coat roses, and they opened up. Now when they opened, they were yellow, but as the flower has aged, it's turned into this beautiful corally sort of pink color. Now as this gets larger and grows and has roses all over it in different ages, you'll have all these varying colors on the same bush, so I can't wait for that. So my trellis is going to have to get built pretty soon, because as you can see, this is beginning to take off. Both of the roses are doing well. There's one on each side of the gate here. Now the last thing I want to show you out here in the raised bed garden before I head out to the no-till garden is right down here. So right here at the bottom of this pear tree, you can see this coming up right here and over here. This is comfrey, and I really like growing comfrey around my trees because it kind of creates this natural barrier to keep grasses and all of that away. I had planted this last year, it was taken off, it was doing really well, and then we moved the ducks in here. And ducks apparently love comfrey. Between the ducks and Edith, because Edith ended up coming in here as well, we lost these comfrey plants. There was comfrey around this tree as well as the other pear tree that I have in here. And I expected them to be gone. However, the comfrey came back. And I was really excited to see these leaves coming up because it's going to make a comeback. Comfrey is a very hardy and hard to kill sort of plant. Even if it is the non-reproducing one, which is what I have here. If you have true comfrey, the seeds are viable and it can become extremely invasive, which this one you have to propagate it for it, which is great because you're not going to have it take over. And I'm actually going to do a video this week on how to propagate comfrey and show you how I use it. Alright, so now on to the no-till garden. Here on the trellis, this is very exciting. Look at how these green beans are doing. They have actually already reached the top of the trellis in several locations. These are the purple pod climbing green beans, or purple beans I should say. My volunteer lemon queen sunflower is about 6 feet tall now. And it's got these flower heads all over the place. I love those lemon queens because it's a multi-flowered sunflower, so it's such a cheerful sunflower to grow. I've also got some zinnias opening up, beginning to open. That coreopsis over there is looking gorgeous. And the tomato plants are all looking really good. These ones down here are those ones that I just kind of threw in here because I was planning on composting them, but I figured I would stick them in the ground and see if they made it. And they're beginning to fill out. They're getting a little bit of size to them, and they're looking really good. So I'm glad I put these in here. And I've got tomatoes starting. So this comfrey plant here I was planning on using this week. I just didn't get a chance to. So this is what I will harvest this week and demonstrate how I use this in the garden, because it's about time to start using this anyways. And it's getting pretty big. So we're going to take care of this. Some more tomato plants. Now here, again, you can tell the difference between the tomato plants. You've got this one right here, which again, no idea what this is. I'll learn. I'll figure it out as the tomatoes begin developing. But this one is very clearly a purple Russian. You can tell because the vines are very viney, very spindly and pointed. And the tomatoes themselves have this teardrop sort of shape. My butternut squash is starting to get blossoms down in here. These ones that you can see are absolutely puny. I mean, I planted them all at the same time. These ones got hit really hard with that frost. I didn't think they'd actually survive, but they seem to be trying. I don't know if I'll get anything from them, but it's good to see that. Over here, my Tulsi basil patch has begun making these little flowers. I don't want them to all go to flower yet. So on several of them, I'm pinching off the flowers. That way there will be more of the plant. It'll get bigger and bushier. But I am leaving some of these because when they flower, the bees absolutely love them. And now that they have gotten a little bit of size to them, the fragrance of this Tulsi holy basil is just amazing. Now, I mentioned previously that I had planted sunflowers in this bed, and then we had that late freeze, and I was pretty sure they had all died. Well, I went ahead and I reseeded it, and I'm super excited. I am seeing little baby sunflowers coming up. So now that everything is starting, once they get a little bit bigger, I'll come out here and I will mulch all of this. Over on this side, we've got the onions. I've got some daikon radishes. The chamomile is looking good. Now, unfortunately, I planted roselle down through here, but I'm only seeing one seedling. I think, again, that the late freeze might have been a factor. I've got lots of roselle seeds because I grew it last year and I saved a ton of the seeds. And so I'm going to go ahead and reseed that probably today and try that again. Down here on the end, these were all those volunteer pepper plants. I have thinned out the vast majority of them. Again, I don't know what these are. The two ends of these beds both had peppers in them. This was either lipstick pepper or it was Tabasco peppers, neither of which I actually grew this year. So that'll be cool to have another variety of pepper out here. Down here, this is my yellow crookneck squash. These were some starts I had picked up at the farmer's co-op and stuck in here. There's a dahlia down here that has come up. I planted two, one on this side and one on this side. That one never came up, but this one's doing well. My sunflower patch is doing pretty good. I'm seeing sunflowers. I had slug issues and a lot of my seedlings got eaten by slugs, and I reseeded and all of that, and I'm starting to see sunflowers, so that'll make me happy. These were all the lemon queens as well. Down here we've got the Jubilee watermelons that I stuck in there, and then empty space for the vines, the watermelon vines, to spread out. Down here I've got some dill, some parsley, and then this daikon radish is sticking up out of the ground. That is going to get pulled out and eaten this week. This is my Ford Hook zucchini. It's all doing great, and I'm seeing what looks like the beginning of the blossoms on some of these plants. Now I am having to very thoroughly start inspecting these plants for pests, especially my squash plants. Saturday morning I saw a squash bug. It wasn't in the garden, but it was here. And if that one was here, there's going to be others. And so I'm reaching that stage of needing to thoroughly look for them every time I come out here. And one of the tricks that I have learned for finding squash bugs, now I have a drip line that I installed in this garden this year, and it's wonderful. But when it comes to those squash plants, what I will do is I will take my water hose, which I use over here for the raised beds, and I will just give the squash plant a quick spray and get it all wet, because what I've learned is when you spray the plant down with water, the squash bugs will climb to the top of the plant because they're wanting to get away from the water, and that makes them easy pickings to pluck them off and throw them in a jar of water. So that is my trick for finding the squash bugs. And as far as getting rid of the eggs, because you want to inspect the bottoms of the leaves and the stems, look for those squash bug eggs. And duct tape, specifically Gorilla Tape, works fantastic. Just take some of that tape, stick it to the leaf, pull it off, eggs are on the tape, not on the leaf. Down there at the bottom of the trellises, I've got the Chinese noodle beans that are coming up, and over there I've got the French climbing green beans. Then of course we've got more comfrey, and I've got lots of flowers right in here, from a crimson coneflower echinacea to the gaillardia blanket flowers, and then my pepper patch down in here. They are setting blossoms. My Chinese 5-color actually has little peppers on here. Look at that. Now, the Chinese 5-color pepper starts off purple, just like the blossom, but then it will change to this cream color, to yellow, to orange, to red. And so your pepper plant will have all of these colors on there, and it's absolutely stunning. You could grow it just as an ornamental plant if you wanted to, but those peppers, I mean, they grow so well, and it's so pretty to have in your garden. I mean, I would grow it just to have that rainbow in there. My stone crop looks like it's about to open. Here's another volunteer zinnia. And the NT half-runner green beans are all doing well. Now these were planted the same day as the purple variety, but the purple variety definitely grows faster. But I know that once these NT half-runners take off, there will be green beans everywhere. Here again is my pepper raised bed, and are all looking really good. All of course except the jigsaw, which again is very puny and very slow growing. But hopefully this makes it. And you can see the purple in the leaves that I mentioned. So hopefully this plant takes off and it does all right. It's funny because right down in there was another one. This is the original one that I planted. Then we had that freeze. And even though this was covered, everything else did okay except the jigsaw. But it looks like it's trying to grow back. So hopefully, fingers crossed. And then over in this raised bed, this again is tomatoes primarily growing on this trellis. And I've got down here, I've got some of the flowering sage, I've got some zinnias, I have some tulsi, and then I've planted lots of basil, not just the tulsi basil. We've got purple opal and Genovese. Over here on the other side, I've got licorice basil, more purple opal, Genovese, and tulsi. And then that right down there is some dwarf oregano. More baby tomatoes. This is the vernissage tomato plant. So these are what's called a saladette sized tomato, They're not really big enough for slicing, but they're bigger than a cherry tomato. And Mr. Smith absolutely loved these vernissage tomatoes last year, and so I'm growing some again this year. Alright, so that is the garden tour for today. Thanks for joining me here at the homestead and walking through and seeing how things are going this week. Again, if you are new here, I do a garden tour every week. It goes up on Mondays. I'm also participating in the Homesteaders of America collaboration, so once a month the tour is part of that joint effort to share our gardens and show what we're doing and what we're growing and how things are happening on our homestead. So if you aren't already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button. You can also hit the bell for notifications. Additionally, I have a newsletter, which is the most reliable means of making sure you know what is going on Cosmopolitan Cornbread, both here on the YouTube channel as well as on my website, cosmopolitancornbread.com, where I've got hundreds of recipes and articles. And not only do I do the garden tour once a week here on the channel all through the garden season, but I also do at least 3 other videos every week on homesteading, home cooking, and back to basics. So thanks again for coming along with me as we walked through the gardens. My name is Constance from Cosmopolitan Cornbread, and I will talk to y'all next time.